I'm Mitchell East. I'm from Manjimup, Western Australia, or the Southern Forest region as we like to call it. I'm farming here on my family's farm of 600 acres. So we have about 1,200 passion fruit vines that my partner Jennifer and I farm together. My parents and sister run an avocado orchard of about 8,000 trees and a packing facility as well for all those fruit they produce, as well as about 2,000 sheep and lambs that run across the rest of the land. So on that 1,200 vines, we normally produce about 20 tonne of passion fruit, of which 30% is not usually market spec. And then anything that we can't send as a fresh product, we process on site through value adding pulping. The skins even get fed back to our sheep, and when we had cows, they get fed to the cattle. So we try and utilise everything that we possibly can and put it back into the system. So I moved back into the farm about 9 years ago, I think it was. And since then we went into planting passion fruit, and then I looked at ways of how do we minimise our inputs, how do we minimise the amount of irrigation we use, and how can we make it more efficient. And that inevitably led me down the path of regenerative agriculture, which once I got onto it really excited me. It is a journey though. We've noticed that you can't just make quick changes rapidly. We are a fairly small operation, but we're still progressing, we're still growing, we're finding new ways and new ideas along the way, and each and every year I never really know what's coming. So for instance, this greenhouse was just a little 2x3 greenhouse that started off with 100 plants as cuttings, and now it's going to turn into potentially 10,000 a year type thing. Well, I guess the first major differences we saw were maintaining ground cover, altering our irrigation styles. So we would normally water 3 times a day, 20 minutes each time. Then we went to just sort of let it grow, try and mulch in between, and we instantly saw a reduction in water that was needed. So we went to short bursts, so 6-minute applications, and we got down to 3 times a day in the heat of summer, and then we're able to cut off those applications earlier than we previously would in, say, autumn, which is quite a dramatic difference, I'd say, just by literally keeping a living soil in between the vines and then keeping the mulch cover in between. Also see a lower fertiliser use because of the fact that you're not watering and leaching that away as much. So the nutrient that's there is being held and it's being utilised by the plant itself. Other things such as increased biodiversity, you'd say we more often than not will find frogs in the vines, we find all sorts of insects. The biggest thing we see during late summer, early autumn is spiders. But another thing we notice with passion fruit is ladybugs love them, and I think they keep the aphids in check as well. When we first started, I think we definitely saw a transition of what you would say is higher nutrient uptake in the plants, and just a simple test is Brix testing of the leaves and the fruit itself. So we were sitting at say 18, 17 Brix level when I started really testing, and as we looked at ways of improving our nutrient uptake, we were hitting more 23s. No, so we still use fertilisers, but the ones that we would look to would always have like a carbon base, so it's going to be more slow release, it's going to be better for the soil, and then we will follow it up with certain microbes and certain food sources for bacteria and fungi. So we, on a regular basis, using humic acid, fulvic acid, we brew a particular microbe mix, and then once it's brewed we feed that to the soil, and we've had really good results with increasing worm numbers when we do that. So looking at other ways to feed the plants, not just through conventional means of chemical fertilisers. So biggest challenge when we initially start was actually finding relevant information and finding information specific to us and finding trustworthy sources of that information. I think the biggest sort of risk to regenerative agriculture is misinformation. And I guess the true biggest challenge I found personally was the failures that you would encounter, because it is super exciting. Regen, it's in itself undoes itself a bit there, because people trust it to the point where they are willing to convert almost overnight. And a lot of, I think, people fall into that trap, and then they fail, and they fail hard. So we did a couple of things where we did summer cover crop plantings, and we did quite a large space, and it was just too hot. I'm more than happy to share what hasn't worked for us, because I don't want someone to have to go through some of the things that we went through. Like, just in the future, I want to continue doing what we're already doing, but finding either better ways to do it or finding greater efficiencies to do it, and then finding people who want to be a part of it. You know, we've, I guess you'd call it vertical integration. We've done everything up until the point where the customer buys it, which is really cool. So I think we'll be doing more of that, where we either do more, styles of product development on farm, and then we'll look at how do we get other people to come and do that with us as well. Maybe they'll bring their products to us and get us to make their products, or they'll come and make their products with our gear. Also, the people I meet along the way, the stories I get to share and the stories I get to listen to, it's created more of a community than I ever had before in my life. Do courses, do field days, read books, listen to podcasts and things like that. But then once you've done that, find a group of people who are either doing it or in the same process of doing what you're doing. Don't be proud to go back to your old ways. Don't be proud to use conventional methods, because you're a business and you're a farmer, and you need to be successful in the long term, because that's more important than your pride.